So I think we should start with my basic background. And I have been photographing all my life, and got to a point in my life where all I wanted to do was take pictures and really didn't want to work anymore. So when I had a real job, I spent all my time on vacation going off on photo outings by myself, and always asking for more time off. My boss would always say, "Gale, you've already had a vacation." I'd say, "Yeah, what's the problem?" So I got pretty tired, however, doing it all myself and having to, plan the trip and do the driving and try to read a map and finding places to stay. And so that got a bit lonely. And then I would invite someone along, but if they weren't as excited about photography as I was, there was a lot of, stone kicking surrounding the car, and that didn't work either. So it was years ago, I was reading it was a press release in Outdoor Photographer magazine, and it was about a photo tour workshop to France. And I had some miles that I needed to use up before they expired. So I called the woman, and we talked about 45 minutes, and at the end of the conversation I said, "I want your life." Not so much the husband and the kids, but the rest of it. So the whole idea of group travel to me before then was kind of anathema. What if you have somebody on a tour that doesn't want to do what you're doing, or they want to see all the museums, or they're waiting for you because you want to take pictures. So I went as openly as I could, and open to expecting anything, and I absolutely loved it. Surrounded with, as we are here, with fellow photographers and people that have a passion for photography. And the only decisions I had to make were what I wanted to eat and where I needed to point my camera next. So everything else was taken care of for me, all the planning, the hotels, the navigation, and I said, I really like this. So that was my bug and how I started into photo tours. And when I came back from that trip, what I did was I started just reading and learning and doing everything I could to prepare myself for some kind of a photography career. And I took a class on running your own photography business. And the gal that had run the Tour de France, we had become good friends during the trip. And for this class, I had to write a business plan. And I thought, okay, what phase of photography do I want to do? And I decided, well, a photo tours, I really like that. That's a good idea. So I'm typing this paper at my real job, and the phone rings. And the gal from the France tour was on the other line, and she said, I wanted to talk to you about possibly joining me in my photography tour business. I said, oh my God, this is like a universe delivered, one of those moments. So I started taking a lot of classes, and if you read the article that I wrote online, I started taking as many photo tours as I could and I could afford. So I wanted to see how people were doing things right, how people were doing things wrong. And I actually found a lot of wrong, but there are some really good teachers out there. And what I found is it's not necessarily the name of the photographer and how big he or she is in the industry. It's more about, can that person teach and handle people? That's the big one. So let's talk about researching a trip. If you're starting cold, that's always the hardest part, I think, of the trip is how do I find out more about the location I want to go to? And there's a number of ways to do that, and it wasn't that long ago that all we had were libraries and photography tour books to look at. So now with the internet, we really have a wealth of information. So what I do when I'm going to a new place is I research as much as I can. So I go on the internet and I look for photographs of this location that I'm going to. Let's say it's Spain, for example. So I'll start probably with Flickr, and then I'll go into the stock agencies to see, some of the better shots. And surprising how many times people actually put the location down. So you do have a pretty good feel. And then Travel books is still a very good way because they usually put the location. Lonely Planet Guide is a good source, and there's just a plethora of travel books on the market. So I would go to one of the bookstores with just a pad and pen and just write down all the information, so I didn't have to buy the book. Rick Steves, as you know, does a lot of books about traveling. I don't find him helpful for what I do because he's more or less giving you the least expensive way to do something for that day. So he's not so much photography centered. So the next thing I do is I check the average weather reports for the location. Two things I don't want to do is be there in the middle of summer, and the other one is when all the tourists are there. So if I'm going overseas, the ideal times for me are spring and fall, after the Europeans have taken their vacation. Also from books, I try to find out what local customs there are. I don't want to offend anyone or be thrown out of the country. I also check the sunrise and sunset times. And as we all know, the best light for photography is before sunset and after sunset and before sunrise. And you have to get to the location early. That's vital. So when you arrive somewhere, I always say give yourself time to scout your location and acclimate, especially if you've been on a long flight. So I suggest don't even pick up your camera. Just walk around in the city or your village or wherever you are for a while. Just get to know the people, let them see you, get a feel for what's going on, and then start to look for some of your locations. I think one of the biggest faults or problems that we create is that we try to squeeze in too much into one photographic outing. So don't try to cover 5 countries in 10 days. You'll just be tired, and your photos will reflect that. Languages that are spoken is vital, and I make it a rule that I learn to say a certain number of things in any language, no matter how difficult it is, and I'll write it out phonetically if I have to and memorize it. But I always try to learn good morning, good evening, good night, yes and no, how much I want, where is, left, right, where is the bathroom, and most important, may I take a photograph? If you don't learn anything, please learn that one. Another thing you want to know is, do you need a guide in the country that you're in? The only location that I go to, which is Morocco, do you need a guide with you at all times for safety and also because of the language. And to go to a popularly traveled location and to hire a guide will not take you to the best photographic spots. A guide will take you to the tour spots because that's what most people want to do. So for my drivers, for example, that I use in Italy and France, it takes me a couple years to train them. So I have them actually looking for photo ops for me. It takes a while. The elevation of a location is important too, especially if you're prone to elevation sickness. It can really take a lot out of you. Immunizations or any health hazards, you need to check for that also to see if there's any shots that you need. And jet lag is a common occurrence in travel, and there's no way around it. There's a couple things that I do to help that. One is I use no jet lag, and I also use airborne on the trips. And anybody ever used that before? Okay. Since I've been using it, I don't know if it really helps with jet lag, but I never get sick on a trip anymore, so I don't catch anything from the airplanes. So hand sanitizer, wipes, and a bottle are vital. And I use that continually while I travel because millions of people have touched everything around you. So, also it's good to to go for a day of rest or two before your trip so you do get acclimated and you're not real disoriented. Jet lag generally hits you on the third day the hardest. Don't ask me why, but it does. So maps, of course, you'll need maps of the country and the city that you're going to. That's vital. And an international cell phone is a good idea. You can buy them there, or if you have one that goes internationally here, that's always a good thing to have with you. Then, of course, you have to, if you're going to be traveling within the country, you have to arrange your trains and your airfare and automobiles if you're going to drive. So a driver's license with you is key. An American driver's license. Most places don't require an international one. So you want to check on the internet for discount airfares. I use cheaptickets.com quite often for my travel. It may not get you there in the most direct manner, but it will get you there. And with airlines now, checking the baggage allowances and restrictions are vital because it seems to change every single day. I just got back from Washington, and the regulations changed from when I got there and when I left a week later. So I'll talk more about what to pack and how to do that.